I'm Keith Nagel. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I'd like to share with you my Miracle in Rome story. Well, it was about 5 years ago. My wife Tony, who's passed away now, and my son Clement, who's now the Catholic priest up at Our Lady of Guadalupe Church up in Taos, New Mexico, we got a bed and breakfast in downtown Rome. And we walked about 3 blocks from where we were staying, and we came upon an old church, and we climbed up these old rickety old concrete steps that were just falling apart, and the intersection was called the Four Fountains, but we were on the corner where one of the fountains had disintegrated. We made it into this old church, and it was just so dark and gloomy in there. It was seemed like the windows had been washed in 200 years. And then even after our eyes adjusted to the darkness, it's still gloomy. Well, my son went back to the back of the church and talked to one of the priests over there and asked if he could say Mass. And they said sure, and they gave him everything he needed. And they said use the little altar just to the left of the main altar in the church. Well, it was about halfway through the Mass, and he was doing the consecration, and I looked up, and I could not believe my eyes what I'd seen. The whole altar was the most brightest bright I could ever imagine seeing, and the tabernacle and the candlesticks that were on the altar that were just almost black were just the most beautiful, shiny gold that I've ever seen in my life. And then when he held up the chalice above his head, it was glimmering and shimmering. It was brighter than the gold around the candlesticks and the tabernacle. And he had the most beautiful grin or smile on his face and looking up. And I looked down and told my wife what was happening. And I could not say a word. It was frozen inside me. And I looked back up, and it was still happening. I was so joyful. I looked back down again and tried to say something. I couldn't. And then I looked down and just said a prayer. I guess that was what I was doing. I looked up, and it was all over. Well, after Mass, I told my wife and my son what I'd seen. And they said, well, why didn't you tell us? And I said, I could not say a word. I tried. I really tried to say it. And what I figured out since then, this happened 5 years ago, is I saw the light of Jesus. It was heaven. It was a taste of heaven. And I want to compare it with what happened, 29 years ago when my son was shot and killed. God talked to me at that point, and he told me, he said, Keith, don't be angry with me. He said, Brian was a gift from me to you. And Tony, and Brad, and Carrie, and you're not drinking for the last 7 years. It was so clear, I almost corrected him and said it was only 6.5 years. And then he showed me what the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life. It was the darkest. He put me out in the middle of nowhere. It was like an outer space. And it was the loneliest, most frightening thing that's ever happened, I've ever thought about since then. I've had 29 years to analyze this. And what I saw was what eternity without Jesus in our lives is like. And how eternity would be without Jesus. And I think I saw what hell is. And what it was so lonely and so devastating, is like you have all your senses and you can still hear, but there's nothing to hear. It was the blackest black. It was the black that light has never penetrated. That's how dark and scary it was. And you can see, but it's so black you can't see. You can hear, but there's nothing to hear. I guess you could laugh, but there's nothing to laugh about. That is hell. That is being without Christ for eternity. Now, you've got to decide, is how do you want to live your life? Do you want to live it so that you go to the dark place or go to the light? And I just had a sample of what heaven's like. And I had a sample of what hell was like. And I'm hoping I go